America's farmers just got hit with a thunderbolt. China has officially severed ties with major U.S. agricultural imports. This isn't just a trade spat. It's a full-scale economic assault on the heartland of America. From soybeans to corn, the Farm Belt is losing its biggest customer and fast. Billions of dollars are now at stake. Rural towns that depend on crop exports are bracing for collapse. Washington is scrambling. But for many, it's already too late. Families that survived the last trade war may not survive this one. So why did China make this move now? And what does it mean for the future of American farming? Stay with us. This crisis goes deeper than you think. This crisis didn't begin overnight. In fact, the warning signs were clear for months, if not years. China has long been the single largest buyer of American agricultural goods, especially soybeans, corn, and wheat. In 2023 alone, U.S. farm exports to China totaled over $30 billion. But under the surface, tensions were boiling. Political pressure, tariffs, and diplomatic missteps had been slowly eroding trust. Then came the breaking point. After a fresh wave of U.S. sanctions on Chinese tech firms and strategic industries, Beijing responded swiftly and sharply. It announced a sudden suspension of agricultural imports from key U.S. regions, citing national food security interests. But no one was fooled. This wasn't about food, it was retaliation. China's Ministry of Commerce canceled several large grain contracts, halted new orders, and redirected future demand to Brazil and Russia. Ports that once unloaded American harvests now sit quiet. Chinese buyers, once seen as reliable partners, have disappeared. For the American Farm Belt, this is a gut punch. From Iowa to Kansas, farmers are watching their crop values collapse. Grain silos are filling up with nowhere to send the product. Export terminals are slowing down. Rural banks are tightening credit. Perhaps most shocking, Washington was caught off guard. While U.S. politicians talk tough on China, it's the farmers who now face the fallout. The consequences of geopolitics are no longer confined to speeches and policies. They're showing up in falling prices, shrinking incomes, and rising debt in the American heartland. This isn't just a trade dispute. It's economic warfare with farmers on the front line. Beijing's move may look sudden, but it's part of a long-term strategy. China is reshaping its food security policies, and that includes reducing dependence on U.S. agriculture. At the same time, it's using trade as a weapon in a much bigger geopolitical game. Let's be clear, this isn't just about soybeans or corn. It's about leverage. For years, the U.S. has used its dominance in finance and technology to pressure China, blacklisting tech companies, restricting chip exports, and rallying allies for economic containment. Now China is striking back, where it hurts. America's farmers a vital political and economic base. And it's not acting alone. China has quietly expanded deals with Brazil, Argentina, and even Russia, countries eager to replace the U.S. as major supplier. In just the last 6 months, China signed a multi-billion-dollar grain deal with Brazil, and it's ramping up investment in agricultural infrastructure across Latin America and Africa. By cutting off U.S. farmers, China is sending a signal it has options. The U.S. doesn't hold all the cards anymore. Meanwhile, American policymakers seem paralyzed. While Congress debates tariffs and national security, the global market is shifting. Nations are building trade blocs without Washington. China is investing in alternative payment systems, bypassing the dollar. BRICS is expanding. The old trade order is crumbling, and farmers are the first to feel it. This isn't just economic retaliation. It's strategic decoupling. And the worst part, it might be permanent. Once China builds trust with new suppliers, those contracts won't return to U.S. farmers. This is no longer a warning shot. It's a realignment of global agriculture. And Washington's lack of foresight has left American farmers dangerously exposed. The fallout is already being felt across the American heartland. From Nebraska to Indiana, farmers are facing a brutal new reality. Prices are falling, contracts are vanishing, and uncertainty is rising fast. Take soybeans, once the crown jewel of U.S. agricultural exports. Prices have dropped sharply since China's announcement. Local grain elevators are reporting a surge in supply with no outbound buyers. Storage facilities are maxed out, and many farmers are being forced to sell at losses just to stay afloat. Livelihoods are at stake. Family farms, already operating on tight margins, are now teetering on the edge of insolvency. Many of these families took out loans in anticipation of a stable export season. That safety net is now gone. Without Chinese demand, the math no longer works, and banks are growing hesitant to extend further credit. And it's not just farmers. Equipment suppliers, transporters, food processors, entire rural economies are feeling the pressure. John Deere dealerships are reporting stalled sales. Fertilizer companies are warning of reduced orders. Small-town grocery stores, diners and schools, everybody suffers when farming suffers. Worse still, insurance companies are bracing for a wave of claims. Crop insurance can't cover everything, especially when the market collapse is politically driven. Farmers are calling it the China Shock 2.0. Past subsidies helped during the Trump-era tariffs, but with national debt soaring and political division deepening, new bailouts may not come quickly, or at all. This is not just an economic story, it's a social one. Rural America is being hollowed out, one trade shock at a time. And with China turning away, the Farm Belt is now facing its most dangerous moment in decades. This agricultural crisis isn't just local, it's deeply geopolitical. China's move to cut off farm imports is part of a broader global shift, away from American economic dominance and toward a multipolar trade system. At the heart of this shift is BRICS, an alliance of emerging powers now expanding and challenging the Western-led global order, with nations like Brazil and Russia supplying China's food needs, and India increasing trade in local currencies. The traditional U.S. grip on global markets is loosening. Washington's past strategy, using economic pressure to control adversaries, is starting to backfire. As China builds trade corridors with the global South, America's most trusted trade tools are becoming blunt, and the consequences hit at home first. While U.S. lawmakers talk about countering Beijing, China is building alternatives, new suppliers, new currencies, and new rules. Cutting off U.S. farmers was more than retaliation. It was a declaration. China doesn't need America the way it used to. For rural America, this means one thing: irrelevance in the New World Order. If the U.S. fails to adapt, it won't just lose markets, it'll lose influence. So here's the question: is this the beginning of the end for America's Farm Belt? Or can the U.S. rebuild trust, diversify its markets, and protect the future of its rural economy before it's too late? What's happening now is bigger than just crops and export. This is a test of America's global relevance, an indicator of whether the country can adapt to a world where power is shifting fast. China just showed the world how much leverage it holds. The question is, will the U.S. respond with strategy, or stumble further into decline? For the farmers watching their futures vanish, and for citizens wondering what comes next, this story is far from over. Stay tuned as we continue to cover the shifting tides of trade, power, and geopolitics. Let us know in the comments, should the U.S. fight back with tariffs, or find new allies fast? Subscribe to Winning Spec for deep analysis that connects the dots others miss, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss what comes next. The farm crisis is just the beginning.